Hello, kings, queens, and beautiful people who watch this channel. Today's video is my first ever anime review on the highly acclaimed and popular 2006 animated series done by Studio Madhouse, Death. 2006 and June 2007. The reason I picked Death Note is, besides its popularity and appeal, I thought it'd be an ideal anime to discuss at first. The premise of Death Note is when a Japanese high school student, Light Yagami, comes across a supernatural notebook called a Death Note. It's a notebook that allows the user to write the name of any person, provided you have their face in mind, to kill them. You write their name and have their face, you can kill them. Now, possessed with this power, Light decides to use this power to rid the world of crime and create a new world, a perfect world, a utopia in which he is the god of. This supernatural notebook was dropped in by Shingami, a death god called Ryuk, who comes in later. The police and media obviously pick up on the huge swaths of criminals mysteriously dying and go into investigation mode. Those who are possible fans or followers of this mysterious killer dub Light as Kira, the Japanese pronunciation for killer. To apprehend Kira brings in the character of L, the world's greatest detective, or at least somewhere in the rankings, the only one who can really bring him to justice, which is the main revolving theme of this entire series. What is justice? Both the characters of L and Light have their own views of how justice should work, or what is right and wrong. Light sees himself as a savior, a god of sorts, passing down judgment and cleansing the world of, I guess, sin, if we're getting into sort of the more biblical slash thematic aspects. Also, if you'd like me to do a thematic episode on Death Note, let me know in the comments below. Whereas in L's case, I feel that he has a more simplistic view, or at least what I see is he just views killing as wrong, whether it's criminal or not. And I think the main attraction of this series for most viewers and fans, and I guess introduce newer fans to the series, is the moral questions the series pose, as well as the relationship between L and Light. It's a very much cat and mouse game, a sort of battle of the minds. At some points, I'm rooting for one character more than the other. It also differentiates itself from a lot of the more high action shonen of its time, like it's no Naruto, Bleach, or One Piece either. Neither is it in its length. It's about 37 now episodes, which compared to other series, I guess more in its vein, that's pretty reasonable. Like, the idea of it isn't so unbelievable, it's fantastical, but it's neither too gritty and, I guess, realistic either, if that makes sense. Also, the line of thinking the characters take place and trying to catch one another out is interesting as well as entertaining. Another observation I've made is I found it's one of those animes, outside of just describing the basic premise, about a guy who gets a death note and uses it to rid the world of criminals, and a battle between him and, I guess, the justice system, or what we'd consider in a civil society or justice system, is that I find it's one of those few animes that's either a gateway anime or one of the few anime I can generally introduce to non-anime viewers who enjoy that sort of content, but maybe not in anime form. Now, for characters, there is Light Yagami, who's the main character. The way he comes off initially is that he's this honor student, he's handsome, he's good looking, he's intelligent, he's charismatic, he's like almost the ideal child any parent would ask for. He's smart as well. He uses all these aspects and attributes about himself to his advantages, and at some point along the story plays everybody. Not to say he's a saint, because he obviously isn't, because that's the moral question, him killing off criminals, is that even morally right? As well as he has a very dark side and this god complex to the 10th degree that would outdo a lot of people, because he literally views himself as a god of this world, as righteous in doing what he's doing. His more dark side, I would argue, he's extremely egotistical, he's a bit narcissistic, he's ruthless, but also cunning, which I admire in terms of a character. In terms of a person, I guess that's more debatable. There's people who were rooting for Light throughout the series. Then we have kind of his counterpart, L, the world's greatest detective, or third or fourth. He's initially very unassuming, kind of looks like that one person who hasn't left their house in about a year, these dark circles around his eyes, pale skin, spiky hair, addiction to sweet and sugary stuff. But he has a great analytical and deductive mind, which I guess makes him one of the best detectives in the world, and a lot further at trying to catch Kira than most people were in this series. It's mostly their relationship, like I said, they're similar but different in a lot of ways, which I think is appealing, and also the sort of relationship they develop. Then there's Ryuk, the person who kind of started it all, which in a lot of ways you'd believe Ryuk's on Light's side more so than L's side, but the way I see it is he's more just kind of the outsider to this entire thing. I mean, he literally just dropped his Deathnote into the human world. Like, he's more seeing this from the outside perspective. I don't think he particularly cares too much. He's just more fascinated by the human nature, also his obsession with apples. They're like the three things I'd say about him. His obsession with apples and his insight into this world, and sort of explains the whole Death Note and what it does to Light in the beginning. Then there is Misa. Oh boy, I have never disliked a character as much in an anime. Well, maybe there's somebody else. Correct me if I'm wrong, but she'd be in a top 10 list somewhere. She is the most irritating, childlike, annoying little shit, for lack of a better description, pardon my French, I've ever met. And the thing is, it's not like she's completely stupid. I believe she has some level of intelligence when she's introduced around episode 11. However, like, just get her purpose and change it out with somebody else, I would have preferred it far more. I am mostly keeping this review spoiler free, by the way, but for a more spoilery thing, watch my theme analysis I might do on this video. I mean, she has this whole pretty kind of goth Lolita thing going on, but her relationship with Light, oh, it nearly annoyed me to the 10th degree. I couldn't deal with it. And then there's more minor characters like the police force that's working with L to capture Kira, like Matsudo and Light's father, whose name I've forgotten, Shichiro, I think it was. And other characters that come to and fro, and the FBI agents as well, which they all kind of play their part into the story, but obviously some characters take more precedence than others, as the ones I've mentioned as well. Overall, they're mainly what make this entire. Now, in terms of sound and animation, the OST, which I listened to just over half of it before making this video, it's not really the type of music you sit down and listen to, unless you're me, because I'm just like that. I mean, there's parts throughout this OST where you have more jazz, sort of inspired smooth tracks. And then you have these big orchestral tracks that, obviously for the more intense scenes with some stuff's going down. Then you have the more choir-based music that's very church-like, which is a major contrast from the more hard rock metal music of the opening and ending for this series. The first opening is The World by The Nightmare, and the second opening is What's Up People by Maximum the Hormone, and the first ending is also Illumina by Nightmare, and Zetsu Billy is the second ending done by Maximum the Hormone. I like the first opening, and the endings more so than the opening for the second part. Usually the change of openings is the changing of an arc in a series, but if I had to compare, I'd probably say OP1, ending 2. However, it fits within the series thematically and sound-wise and sonically. Now, in terms of animation or aesthetics, I'm not an animation art student or film student, so you can take all this with a pinch of salt. But for me, the animation is done by Studio Madhouse, who are notable, have a lot of popular series they've made more recent than Deathnote, the likes of One Punch Man, which is pretty popular, Hunter x Hunter, and even older ones such as Master Keaton, Trigun, and my personal favorite, Monster. Like, the contrast to the color scheme is rather well fitting. The animation is not meant to be 100% realistic, but fitting within, I guess, that shonen style is. I guess it looks more indicative of what I'd imagine somebody thinks of when they think of anime, but it doesn't look super unrealistic either. Like, no offense. So, like, the way the characters animated in Code Geass, I'm like, oh, how is that body proportionate? You know what I mean? Like, if the scene is meant to be dark and intense, it's dark and intense. If it's meant to be more bright and kind of Sunday looking, it is more bright and Sunday looking. And in terms of an anime that's nearly 13 to 14 years old by now, I feel like it still holds up relatively well. And the last thing is entertainment value, because as much as I can go through categories of like characters, themes, all this other stuff, the most important thing is is the series enjoyable and did I enjoy watching it or not? And I'd have to say I did at the time enjoy watching it. Because for me, at the time I was watching Death Note, I was kind of going back into anime after I'd taken a very long 6 year, 7 year break from it. And to find a show that was in the genre of sort of mystery, supernatural, loosely psychological, and suspense that was an animated form was great. And it's been 6 or 7 years since I've properly sat down and watched the series, and I still have a love for it. Now, as much as I've been singing this series praise, it's not perfect. Like me and a lot of critics will say, this everything kind of after episode 25 is kind of, it's almost as if the writers went, fuck it, and it just gets a bit sloppy and for my liking. However, not to the extent I'd probably say give up on the series, but at that point, if you stopped, I'd understand. Misa's extremely annoying character. Like, she doesn't ruin it completely for me, but oh, I'd rather have anyone else done better or aspects I enjoyed in other series more. In saying all that, its negatives and its positives, I'd still give this series like somewhere between like a 7 and 8 out of 10, which might be lower than the general rating, but I feel like that's fair, or like a 4 out of 5 stars. I don't know, I'm just throwing ratings out here. And if you want to watch it, it's available on Funimation, it's available on Netflix, it's available on Hulu, from what I've gathered. Um, and if you don't want to watch the anime, there's at least several other adaptations of it, but don't ever watch the Netflix one. Just don't. It's bad, just don't. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you like this review, let me know what you think and comment below.